Hello, everybody, and welcome to what is a very, very exciting day for the Infrastructure Sustainability Council and for all of our members and the sector more broadly. Today, we launched the IS Essentials Rating Tool, the latest tool to join the suite of the IS rating scheme. And today, we're very excited to walk you through what IS Essentials is and how you can get involved in using the tool. But before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners in the land in which we're meeting today. For me, that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I'd like to acknowledge a deep connection to land, water, and culture, and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and future. And tēnā koutou katoa to our attendees in New Zealand. Today, as I said, we have a jam-packed agenda for you. Unfortunately, you'll have to listen to me for a little bit further, a little bit more. But following that, our IS Essentials tool in action, Andrew Aiken, the program sustainability principal for Inland Rail, will be talking to you about his experience with IS Essentials. Shortly followed by Ty Momberg, our technical manager, looking at the development process and the rating tool as a whole. And then Rob Di Cavallero, our head of technology, talking about ratings digitalization. And then Hayley Greaves are talking about IS Essentials training and how you can start to build your capability and capacity in this space. And then finally, we will have, pardon me, some time for questions and answers at the end. There are a couple of reasons why this is such an exciting moment for the ISC. The first being that this is our first digital tool. We have finally taken the leap into the 21st century and are very excited to have been partnered with Westpac and the New Zealand Government Innovation Fund to support the development, not just of the technical parts of the tool, but also the digitisation of it. As I said, this is the newest tool in the IS rating scheme, and probably a little bit of an overview. I'm sure many of you have heard some of the talking and some of the mentioning of our IS Essentials more broadly, but to bring everyone up to speed, this is a design and construct tool, a design and as-built rating tool for projects between 5 and 100 million. It is, as I said several times, our first digital rating tool, and I don't feel I can say that enough. We have built in a program approach so that you can actually amalgamate a number of projects or a number of projects into a program, or a number of projects into a more of an organizational approach. It has been developed to support all assets to maximize social, environmental, and economic return from the asset. And then finally, as I said earlier, it has been supported by Westpac and the New Zealand Government Innovation Fund to ensure that we are able to digitize, but also meet the needs of the market where we are at the moment. In terms of, pardon me, in terms of why we felt this was important and why a rating tool we felt would actually start to support that smaller end of the market. It's important to note that in Australia and New Zealand, 80% of the infrastructure spend is on assets under 100 million. And whilst they're not the big ones we talk about, the ones that drive the most value and are most connected to the local communities and society, they're the ones that enable the best benefit and the most just outcomes for communities. But the value proposition from our perspective is that we were focused on we wanted to enable and support organizations to deliver broader benefits from their assets. We've moved beyond where an asset by itself and the function of the asset is enough to support communities, but recognizing that that asset, both during design and construct, but into operations, can deliver more than just its functional requirement for the communities it supports. The second is that it supports projects and organizations to accelerate their sustainability objectives. So by providing a tool and a framework that allows organizations and projects to focus very solely on the most material aspects of that asset, allows organizations to think about and go on the journey in a collective way and in an organized way towards meeting sustainability objectives. The next is that it enables you to very accurately and very clearly measure the sustainability performance of an asset. It's also allowing us to enable organizations to better manage their social license through third-party assurance, but also by providing benchmarks and frameworks that allow organizations and sustainability professionals to talk about how they're going to engage with communities, how they're going to make sure that they're meeting the needs both in the immediacy but in the long term of those communities. It also allows us to start supporting organizations to avoid threats such as greenwashing and allow organizations and projects to improve their reputation. And then finally, making sure that in an environment where we're seeing climate change fundamentally shift some of the previous assumptions around our assets, it's allowing us to future-proof those assets more effectively. Let's go to the next slide, please. As I said, IS Essentials is about enabling ratings for smaller projects. Our focus has been making sure that we can reach all sectors and all organizations with smaller average project sizes. So really focusing on making sure that the water sector, the energy sector, and local government have a tool that they can use and call their own. It is a digital platform which is improving both the assessment management, but also the ability to actually look and understand exactly how your assessment is coming together. We have built in a very smart resource hub so that it's easier to access guidelines, templates, recordings of webinars, so that as an assessor or as a person on a project, you can very easily and very quickly reach reference material to help you on your journey. And then finally, we've created something that we believe is an entry-level tool for organizations new to the IS rating scheme. So making sure that there is a pathway to continuously improve that organization, and as assets fluctuate in value, a pathway to building your maturity around sustainability. I'd like to take a moment to recognize that rating tools at the ISC aren't done in isolation. They're not built in isolation. They're not thought about in isolation. For the IS Essentials process, we undertook engagement with an industry reference group, a technical working group, as well as a series of pilot projects. And I would like to take a moment just to say a huge thank you to all those organizations that supported the development of the IS Essentials rating tool. It is never in isolation that these tools can be built. And we have tried to make sure that along the way that the tool has had exposure to as many asset classes as possible to ensure that it's meeting the needs of a broad range of asset classes and a broad range of stakeholders, making sure that it really is that enabling all infrastructure to deliver social, cultural, environmental, and economic benefit. So to give you a little bit of a feel for those pilot projects and sort of some of the ways in which we've tested and poked and prodded, we've through the pilot scheme, we've seen ports use it through channel beacon replacements and dock upgrades. From an energy perspective, we've had energy substations and water to energy plants use it. We've had rail corridor repair works, the usual road pieces. We've had an aviation precinct, a water plant upgrade, and then some social aspects as well, with a boardwalk and a public swimming pool using the tool. So it has given us a huge confidence, both in terms of the CapEx range, but also in terms of it being usable and user-friendly to a broad range of asset classes. Finally, I'm going to hand over to Andrew Aiken, the Principal Sustainability Advisor from Inland Rail, to talk about his experience in the use of the IS Essentials tool and give you a little bit of an insight into the tool itself. Andrew, over to you.
Thanks, Patrick. And thanks for the opportunity to participate in a monumental launch event today. So my background in the IS Essentials rating tool has been quite long. I was first working with the IS Council as a technical consultant in identifying ways that the version 2.1 rating tool could be modified to be simpler for the application on smaller projects. So this involved a comprehensive review of IS version 2.1 credits and the technical manual requirements. We reviewed the input from the industry reference group and their recommendations. We did a lot of brainstorming of other opportunities to make the tool easier to use and we did a painstaking review of proposed changes, credit by credit, both design and as-built, adding up the risks, the opportunities, and the benefits of all those changes. And then we prepared a draft technical manual, which was then tested with pilot projects. After that, I was able to participate further as the chair of the technical working group. And with that group, I participated in the development of some templates. We had feedback forums with pilot projects, hearing from the users of the tool. We provided feedback on the online system, and we provided testing and feedback on the training materials and the exam. I also have worked on a couple of pilot projects over the testing period, looking at the difference between IS Essentials and other design and as-built rating tools and processes. I was also able to see the issues that new proponents and new tool users faced. And I had the opportunity to prepare submission documentation using some of the new templates and get hands-on testing of the rating tool. So my observations from this is that this rating tool is very different, and some of those differences might not be all that obvious. The digital portal that we're going to hear a bit more about today is going to make submissions significantly easier. The majority of my time at work is spent developing submissions for large infrastructure projects, and the insights that we're going to see of the digital portal will show you there's some really great simplifications coming through. With IS Essentials, the weightings assessment is absolutely crucial. This means that it may be possible to get a rating by only addressing 2 or 3 credits, depending on your project. This is very, very different to other IS rating tools. And the tool has the impact that we wanted on project teams. It reminds them to look for sustainability opportunities and shows them how to evaluate the benefits of those opportunities. And this is a new segment and a new tool. And whilst being similar to other IS rating tools, I think it's really important to note that it is quite different. If some of you are thinking about using version 2.1, on a project like I am on several of my projects coming up, this IS Essentials tool gives you a really good chance to have a close look at the structure that's slightly different with version 2.1 and apply it in a way that is a great introduction. So, you know, I wouldn't hold back. I would definitely recommend that you have a crack at an IS Essentials project. And now I'd like to hand over to Ty Momberg.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Andrew. Those are really kind words. And yes, Andrew's been involved throughout the process and has been a huge asset to the tool development process and in providing significant feedback. So thanks very much for your input, Andrew. Today, I'm going to be giving an overview of the tool development process that we've used, and then focus on the rating tool itself. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a map of the technical tool development process that we've used, and it really shows how the technical manuals have been iteratively updated on the back of stakeholder feedback, much as Pat and Andrew both have said. And you can see that there's been a real journey from the draft Rev 1 of the technical manual, and then we incorporate feedback all the way through to the final digital tool. On the bottom half of the slide, it demonstrates that there were 4 iterative steps associated with the tool development. So the first was getting the stakeholder feedback or the inputs, and this was from the pilot projects, as well as the Essentials Technical Working Group and all the other industry stakeholders. Step 2 was where we collated and undertook an initial analysis of the feedback. Step 3 was a detailed technical review and included the ISC's internal technical panel as well as relevant subject matter experts. And then step 4 was incorporating the relevant technical details into the rating tool updates. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to go do a deep dive into some of the rating tool updates, starting with the Essentials roadmap. As the Essentials tool will be used by many stakeholders that are new to ICE ratings, one of the first things we did was to develop an ICE Essentials roadmap for a typical DNC project. And this does a couple of things. It really signposts which aspects of the rating are to be undertaken at which points during the project. This document is available on ICEP resources and is a really valuable first step for new projects to get their heads around the rating process and the steps required. Next slide, please. Thanks. As Pat and Andrew both said, ICE Essentials has really been designed to reduce the complexity of ICE ratings for projects under $100 million. And the main way to reduce the complexity is to enable the tool to be scaled so that it can match the size and the needs of the specific projects. There are about 6 major tool developments that we have worked on to enable the scalability, and I'm going to talk you through these over the next 7 slides. Next slide, please. Thank you. As Andrew said, the materiality assessment, this is really one of the biggest tool developments that we've been working on to enable the scalability. So how does it work? The point is really to get the rating tool to focus on the most material items for the project, and then for the project to concentrate on doing those items really, really well. So we've developed a materiality assessment process that determines the number of credits screened in based on the project's capital value. You can see the different capital bands on the left-hand side of the slide, and then the number of total credits screened in per band on the right. That's within the red box. And I'm going to talk you through the smallest band just to explain a little bit more how it works. So if you have a project that is under 20 million, this project will have a total of 10 to 15 credits screened in. And projects with more high materiality items will have more credits screened in up to that upper limit of 15. And projects with fewer high materiality items will have fewer credits screened in down to that lower limit of 10. I also wanted to be very clear that screened in means that these credits are available to projects for them to then target or not. There are no mandatory credits within the ICE Essentials rating tool. And this leads us to a very possible scenario that again, I think Andrew also mentioned, where a project that is under 20 million has only 10 credits screened in. And in theory, this project could target maybe 3 of those credits to achieve a bronze rating and some really good outcomes. The last thing I just wanted to mention on this slide is that while it might look quite complex, projects won't see any of this as part of the automated process within the digital tool. Next slide, please. Thank you. The item number 2 is a number of updates we've undertaken within the base case methodology. So the first of these is the reverse calculated base case and starts with the project actual case. And then you reverse calculate the base case off the back of this. So this really enables projects to use a more accurate starting point, which results in more accurate verification outcomes. And the second one, this is a really big item that's only been introduced for the Essentials tool. It is the light credits or no base case credits. So this is an alternative pathway for those resource credits that have typically always needed a base case to be prepared. Please note, it is an entry-level pathway with a reduced number of points, and it's only available for smaller projects, which is those under 50 million. So these credits do still require modeling of the actual, which is the same as the larger credits, but base case modeling is not required. Instead, there was just one more point on that previous blanks. So instead of doing the base case, what projects do is you need to identify the opportunities for reductions and then implement the viable ones. Thanks. Now to the next slide. So whereas the real big thing, as I've mentioned, is the materiality assessment, and obviously we did a lot of work up at the very kind of top, at the entry point, we've also continued that work within the credits themselves. And there are 4 levels of impact. The first starts at the credit level, when the capital band determined which credits are not applicable. And you can see the example for Workforce 1, when the entire credit is scoped out for projects under 20 million. The next level is at the credit criteria level, and Workforce 2 is an example of this. So only the as-built criteria apply for the lower bands. The third level of impact is at the credit criterion level, when a specific criterion is not applicable. And for this example, we're showing credit STA2, when criterion ABL 3.1 is not applicable for the lowest capital band. And then lastly, the 4th level of impact is at the must statement level, when specific must statements are not applicable. And obviously the intent here, and in so many other instances, is that smaller projects do less. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we recognize for essential projects that some of the sustainability work may be undertaken as part of a larger program of works, or may be undertaken at the organizational level, and that this work could be used within multiple ratings to maximize efficiencies and also maximize outcomes. We also know that each project is going to be slightly different, and that each proponent has their own systems and processes. So we're trying not to be too specific or too prescriptive in this space. Rather, we are saying that both of these approaches are very much on the table, and we're creating some high-level guidance and definitions. But the intent is really that the proponents approach us with their proposals so that we can work on these together. So if you are thinking of this, or if your projects do want to participate, please do reach out to your IS project manager for some more details on both of these. Next slide, please. Thank you. Templates, we have heard throughout the tool development process that templates can play a huge part in this. And we really know that they can ease the documentation burden associated with the rating. At this point, we've developed a resource outputs reporting template and an ecological value reporting template. And both of these will assist projects in submitting the information in a standardized manner, which will not only ease assessment, but also is going to be make verification that much easier too. We've also developed a multi-criteria options assessment example and calculator, as well as a whole of life example and calculator. And as Andrew said, we're working on a number of other templates with the Essentials Technical Working Group, and these we brought to the market in the near future. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is the last of the kind of big developments that I'm talking about. Verification. So we really are expecting an increase in the number of smaller projects wishing to undertake NICE rating. And we've updated our verification model to be more appropriate for these smaller projects. But at the same time, we don't want to lose the robustness associated with a third-party review. So some of the main changes, these projects will only have one verifier, and the materiality assessment will be reviewed and agreed by the ISC. And as you can see, the award levels, these are the same as the larger the 2.1 design and as-built tool. Next slide. This is the last slide from myself, just to let you know that the fees are now on our website. So please do go and have a look. And you'll see when you do have a look that we've also taken project scale and size into consideration here, as the fees for a smaller project, so with the under the 20 million band, are significantly less than the fees for a project in the largest capital value. But also, it's really, really important to note that the fees for all the essentials projects are considerably less than the 2.1 scheme. Thank you very much. I'm now going to hand over to Rob.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are joining us from. and I have the fun task of sharing with you some of the stuff we're doing on the digitalization of the rating scheme. Next slide, please. So IS Essentials is the first of our rating scheme tools that we're putting on our new digital platform. And with thanks to the New Zealand Government Innovation Fund, there is a screenshot of the new login. Next slide, please. So our digitisation journey is across 3 areas. One is a new IS rating portal to manage the end-to-end process of doing a rating. So this will bring the rating process into a single database. It's going to give us the ability to add better automation, a better user experience. The way I describe it to those who've been through a rating before is if you took the scorecard, the credit summary forms, SharePoint, and probably a few other things, and bang them all together, out would come one system, which will be our IS ratings portal. The second thing we're developing is online calculators, such as an online version of the materials calculator, and we're doing a big piece of work on that for the second half of this calendar year. And the third thing, which has been mentioned a little bit already, is a new resource centre that will take the resources that we have available and make them easier for you to access. And this will eventually replace ISAP resources. And I'll give you a bit more information about that a little bit later on. Now, Essentials is the first tool we're putting on this new platform. The technology that we've chosen we chose not just for important things like data security and reliability and so on, but also as a platform that we'll be able to keep building on. So while what I'm about to show you is version 1, if you like, and it will be a great start, it's certainly not the finish point. It's something that we intend to keep adding to over time. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do is show you some of the new IS rating portal. And I'm going to start with the materiality assessment because this is a really important part of how IS Essentials scales to suit the size of the asset. Click please, Danielle. So the platform uses a wizard style process, step 1, 2, 3 across the middle, you can see there. First step is answering a questionnaire similar to what you would have done in the scorecard. In the demo, I'm answering the questions for ENE1. The system will validate the answers that you're giving. So in this case, a road tunnel with no tunnelling is an invalid combination. So the system will tell you that's invalid. Once I've fixed the answers, it will then tell me that that is a valid combination. Once I've answered the questions, I can then attach some evidence to go with it. I'll just let the video catch up to what I'm saying. So I'll add a document. In this case, I'm going to add really useful plan version 1 from my computer. And once the system uploads it, this will be available right next to the questions. So they're all together rather than one thing in SharePoint and another thing in a scorecard. I'll show you later, you can reuse the same file in multiple places in your rating. Step 2 is alternate materiality. And this is where you can propose an alternate answer to what's come out from the questionnaire. I'm going to jump straight to step 3 in the interest of time. And this is the elective credit step. So the system has determined what's screened in and permanent, as Ty was explaining earlier, but you can add any of the remaining credits as elective credits. So the remaining ones are listed. If I tick it, that credit is now being added to the rating. So let's finish the steps. The system will now calculate materiality. It will show you what is screened in, what is permanent, and what is elective. It will also show you the points for design phase and as-built separately. As Ty mentioned, one of the scaling techniques is some credits may not apply in the design phase, in which case the system will redistribute the points appropriately. So that's the 3-step materiality process. Let's now have a look at how self-assessment will work. Click, please. So the self-assessment process, let's go to the design tab. There is an overview screen. I'm going to skip straight to credits and look at the place 2 credit. I'm going to change my target level from level 3 to level 1. And you'll see the system is now reconfiguring itself to show only the criteria relevant to what this rating is targeting. So it's trying to guide you through what you're actually trying to work on. If I expand the credit, it shows you the requirements or the must statements for that credit and has a structured form for you to fill out. Now, I said earlier, you can use the same documents or files in multiple places. So let's reuse really useful plan version 1 again as part of the response to these requirements. Now, I'm not going to fill out the actual form today, but for the sake of demonstrating progress tracking, I'm going to mark this criteria as complete. And for the demo, I'm going to jump to the next criteria in this credit, and I'll mark that one as complete. What the system's going to do is check that against the requirements in the technical manual. Once you have done all the criteria for levels that you are targeting, the system will then update your progress and give you a lovely little green tick next to each of the credits. So as you're working and adding to your self-assessment, it will help you track your progress. Click, please. Take us to the next slide. So now I'm going to show you the document library. So these are all the files that you've uploaded to your rating. We've only got one in this demo. It'll show you where you've used that file, and you can click to go back to that location in the rating. If I go back into the document library, one of the things it'll let you do if you haven't submitted for verification yet, let's say I have version 2 of my really useful plan. I can click replace, upload version 2, and the system will now replace version 1 with version 2 in all the places that we used that document, rather than having to go back through and redo it. And you'll see now it's now replaced version 1 with version 2. Next slide, please. And the last thing I'm going to show you is our new resource center. So if I go back to the design phase and have a look at the place to credit, at the top, there are a bunch of links to technical manual, additional guidance. If I click on those, that'll take you to the technical manual, to the correct spot for that credit. If I go back to the portal on the left, there is a menu option for the new resource center. And when it opens, you can see this, and this is already an improvement over ISAP resources. You can search, there's a search bar in the middle. If I go back into the portal, we've also got an in-app widget so that you can stay working on what you're working on and access the resources that we've made available. And that will include the resources that Ty has talked about, like the IS Essentials roadmap. This new resource center will eventually replace ISAP resources. We'll be rolling it out over the next few weeks, and we'll be sending information out to our community of ISAPs with instructions and information on how to access this new resource center. And I will point out it is available for accessing outside of the ratings portal. So although Essentials is on the portal, the rest of the IS rating scheme will be able to use this resource center when we roll it out over the next few weeks. So that is a whirlwind tour through our digitization journey for the rating scheme. I'm now going to hand over to Hayley to talk through some of the IS Essentials training.
Thanks, Rob. Just a quick reminder to everyone that if you've got any questions, you can submit them in the Q&A function. Following this section and a short video, we'll move to Q&A and we'll answer as many questions as possible in the time that we have left. So IS for Essentials Training Toolkit, as you can see, is part of the IS for Professionals pathway. If you're a current ISAP, you'll be familiar with the diagram that's on the screen. ISAPs will have completed the core unit, IS Foundations and IS Rating Skills, and progressed into either planning, designing as built, or operations, followed by ISAP accreditation. The green boxes that you can see in the standard section represent the IS for Essentials, IS Essentials modules, and their associated end of course assessment. You can see the IS Essentials modules are embedded into designing as built training. In the next few slides, I'll provide a quick overview of the training content and how you, whether you're an existing ISAP or not, can access IS Essentials training. The IS Essentials training does assume prior knowledge of IS version 2.1 Design as Built rating tool. So it is highly recommended that you have gone through that training. Completion of rating skills and design as built training are both required prerequisites. So I mentioned 2.1 as recommended, but design as built training is required. The training is broken down into 5 self-paced modules that are represented with the green circles: an end of course assessment, certificate, and supplementary resources. And we will continue to add to those supplementary resources as we get additional case studies and real projects with real outcomes. As you've heard from the previous speakers, there are a number of elements and processes of the IS Essentials tool that enable it to be applied to smaller projects. The training is tailored specifically around those elements and processes that make it different. The materiality assessment, for example, the modelling pathways, i.e. base case, light credit options, criteria within credits that are extremely different, And of course, the final module introduces the IS rating portal, where all elements of the IS Essentials rating are now housed. So if you are an existing ISAP, I think we've had over 70 existing ISAPs go through the training already. It is free until the 31st of July, and you can use the code ISAP Essentials when registering. Use that in the promo code section, and that'll bring the cost down to $0 for you. From the 1st of August, there will be a small fee to access the IS Essentials Training Toolkit. So I imagine I'll see an influx of registrations between now and then. A reminder that you have to complete all of the modules and the end of course assessment before you can then download your certificate. And the certificate is a completion certificate, not an ISAP accreditation certificate. If you're new to the rating scheme, from August, you can register for the IS for Professionals pathway in full. That is IS rating skills and design and as built. And you'll receive access to the IS Essentials modules at no additional cost. So that will come into your IS Learn dashboard as in the same format as you will see design and as built training. If you are new to design and as built phase, but you've already undertaken IS rating skills, planning and operations, then you do not need to undertake rating skills again. You can enter the pathway at Design and As Built, which is represented on the screen in a blue dashed box. Just a final reminder to add any questions in the Q&A, and we'll answer as many as we can. And I will now hand back to Patrick.
Right. Thank you very much, Hayley. So we do have one last little delight before we go into questions, but ultimately the most exciting part of this for us is that IS Essentials is now available for the market to use. If you're interested in using it, firstly, register for rating on our website. Make sure that you're upskilling by enrolling in training. And then finally, if you have any questions or queries, visit our website and see the brochures and case studies, or just pick up the phone or drop us an email. We're more than happy to talk to anyone and everyone about this tool. We are very excited by it. Before I get into the Q&A, and just another reminder that the Q&A function is open, and please put your questions in there, I might just get Danielle to press play.
IS Essentials is the latest rating tool in the IS rating scheme. It provides benchmarks and third-party assurance for infrastructure assets between the capital value of $5 and $100 million. IS Essentials can be applied to a range of infrastructure projects, anything from energy, water, ports, airports, road, rail, and social infrastructure such as swimming pools and parks.
So through applying the IS rating scheme, we're looking to identify the areas that are of key importance in terms of driving sustainability outcomes for the project. So for example, through applying the materiality assessment and going through that process, we've identified that key sustainability initiatives that we should really be focusing on involve enhancing the community outcomes for the Jardagin and Lombardina Aboriginal communities, enhancing the ecological outcomes for the ecological values that are affected by the project, and also understanding our energy and greenhouse gas emission impacts and identifying ways that we can reduce these across the infrastructure life cycle.
So applying the tool to a marine project was new, not only for us, but was new for within TMR and the Infrastructure Sustainability Council. What we did was we took each criteria, thought about how it could apply to this small value project. Really, it was under $10 million, and in a marine context, some of the criteria we thought were really far more worded for road projects, and so we really challenged ourselves and each other. The Infrastructure Sustainability Council, our expert within TMR, really familiar with roads, and with ourselves and the engineers, marine engineers, how the intent of that criteria could apply to the beacons. And we just took it criteria by criteria, and then understood the different, where we might sit in terms of maturity of application of the criteria. And as we worked through that, we would then test that with the Infrastructure Sustainability Council contact, who was great in challenging themselves as well and the organisation for what we could apply. We eliminated those criteria that weren't appropriate for the project, included those that were, and certainly with guidance, chose the criteria that we would use for evaluation.
IS Essentials has influenced project decision making and the consideration of project sustainability initiatives, and allowed us to challenge business as usual with the backing of an industry best practice framework.
And that then has also resulted in changes to the standards for the beacons that are now being rolled out elsewhere, including in the Gladstone shipping channels.
So from a broader organisational perspective, the IS rating scheme is really helping us identify areas for improvement in terms of driving sustainability outcomes on the project. And it's also helped us identify gaps within the organisational areas for improvement in terms of sustainability outcomes. And through taking a hands-on approach with a lot of the rating scheme credits, we're also building a lot of the capability in-house within the organisation.
The thinking differently that I led with the team, and very much in collaboration with the team from within MSQ, was definitely stimulated by the criteria in the IS Essentials tool. Thinking through all of the criteria certainly prompted us to consider the design, the way that we would deliver the project, the procurement, the standards, who we engaged with, both from within the organisation as well as externally as well, and those things have really stuck and certainly improved our business and changed our business for the better for the longer term. My advice to anyone who's thinking about applying this IS Essentials tool or other Infrastructure Sustainability Council tools is do it. Give it a go. It is worth the investment. Yes, it is an investment in money and time and effort and thought power, but you'll get that back in spades.
Right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. There are a number of questions in the Q&A, so thank you very much for your questions. I might start with the first one, and I'll respond to this one. If IS Essentials covers all material sustainability issues, why couldn't it be appropriate for all projects, i.e. larger than 100 million? Or in other words, do we still need version 2.1? It's a wonderful question, and thanks for it, Rick. I'd expect a big question from you. So I think the big thinking here is that the ambition and scope for impact and outcomes are greater at a larger scale. So we want projects with the resources to drive forward industry by working across the whole sustainability spectrum, to do so whilst acknowledging that small projects with less resources can still achieve a rating and still get verified data and continue to build on their journey. But I think fundamentally, when you're looking at IS Essentials, it's a very strong signal to the direction that the ISC is heading in terms of our rating scheme more broadly. So I wouldn't be saying that changes to the larger to the version 2.1 or the larger end of the rating scheme is not going to happen.
Sorry, Pat, if you don't mind, I just wanted to add, I guess from my perspective, the way I look at IS Essentials is that and what the materiality assessment does, and I think Rob illustrated that quite well in his walkthrough. It's to help focus on the most material sustainability items for that project. And then those projects can then focus on doing those most material, those biggest tickets are focus on doing those really well. So it's maybe not all, but it's trying to have a tool to link and enable the projects to focus on their most material items. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Ty. Ty, I think this one is actually for you. What defines a low experience project? I think you made reference to low experience in your
Yeah, sure. So I
presentation.
think it's a really a broad brush. But I think this question is meaning who can use the IS Essentials tool, and the answer is everyone. You don't have to be a low experience project, and low experience in the sense could mean someone who hasn't undertaken a rating before, or maybe has just started on their journey. But hopefully we are super clear that this tool is not only for people with low experience. It's open to the entire industry, but we also think it can be a stepping stone for those low experience or people who haven't had much experience with IS ratings to understand how rating tools work and how to use them for the smaller projects. Thanks.
Thank you, Ty. Probably sticking with the theme of Ty's responses, and Andrew, you might want to weigh in here as well. A question from Morgan Hamilton: can a construct-only contract register for an IS Essentials rating?
I can go first, and then maybe Andrew, if you wanted to add on afterwards, if that's cool. So yes, definitely they can. We have actually added some words within the IS Essentials technical manual. And when I saw that question, I pulled it up quickly. So it's projects undertaking an as-built only or a construct-only contract. They need to demonstrate the evidence for both the design stage and the as-built stage, as the final rating is really for the design and the construction. So yes, they can register and they can undertake it, but we do add a caution. There's an increased level of risk, but they are very welcome to register. Over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, so I think it was thrown at me because one of my projects doing a pilot is exactly that type. So yes, it can be done. And like any IS rating, you need to be careful in the documentation that's prepared for the project to make sure that it does address the requirements. And that does go beyond business as usual. So, this doesn't provide a rating for no effort. You need to put some effort in there. But yes, a construct-only small project can certainly get a rating.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Andrew. And yes, that's exactly why I threw it over to you. A question from Aaron Veal, which I'll respond to. Is there any opportunity/requirement for major resource companies to adopt an IS rating? There is no requirement for major resource companies to adopt an IS rating, but in terms of opportunity, it really depends on what the approach is and what the organisation is looking to do, and we're happy to have a conversation. Aaron, if you wanted to reach out and have a broad conversation about that, I'm more than happy to talk. Another question from Rick Walters. If you're trying to make IS Essentials simpler than IS version 2.1, why does it require more training than IS version 2.1? Doesn't this go against simplicity? Hayley, I might pass to you and then happy to help if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. When we originally scoped the training for IS Essentials, the plan was to have a completely separate training. However, we quickly found out that there would be a lot of duplication of content across the design and as-built and the essentials. And so we pivoted our approach to make a simple piece of short self-paced modules that are an additional 1.5 hours maximum on training. And we've went to market with that at no additional cost to try and account for the resourcing that's required to undertake an IS Essentials rating. That doesn't mean that we can't support IS Essentials projects with bespoke training, should they request it.
And Rick, I think it's not about whether or not the training is a reflection of whether it's simpler or not, but rather making sure that the unique nature of the unique pieces of IS Essentials compared to the rest of the rating scheme are well understood prior to commencing a rating. We have another question here. Can this be applied to projects with capital value of less than 5 million? What factors prevent it from it giving meaningful results if we applied to a smaller project? So I'm thinking many local government projects can be less than $5 million. Ty, would you like to jump in first, and then I'm happy
Yeah,
to support?
definitely. So the short answer is yes, it can be. When we started the tool development process, it was originally $0 all the way up to $100 million. But some of the things we got back from the stakeholders and the pilot projects was that often within that under 5 million band, the project timeframes were so short, and the resources were so scarce that they were really struggling. So that's why we have launched the tool as it currently sits, so from the 5 to the 100. But yes, we would love projects to have a go, have a look at it and try. But officially it's from 5 upwards, but yes, projects under 5 can also apply it.
Monique, while I've got you on the line, would you like to chip in any further on there as well?
Sorry, I think Ty has covered this perfectly. If you want to go for a project that is smaller, please go ahead. We've actually had one of the pilot projects that was just under that $5 million. So yes, it can be done, and it's definitely encouraged.
Great, thanks, Monique. Will any of the features from IS Essentials be carried over to version 2.1, e.g. applying an organizational approach for some credits? I'm happy to kick this one off, and then more than happy, Ty, if I miss anything, please correct me. Both the organizational and program approach are available for version 2.1 as well. So we developed them with the full rating scheme in mind. So looking for opportunities to drive efficiency gains, but also an opportunity to support organizations in building their maturity, not just at a project level, but at a whole organizational level as well. So yes, both of those are available for version 2.1 as well. Ty?
Nothing further from me. I think that covers it beautifully.
Great, thank you. And then finally, a question from Hope. Hello, Hope. Haven't seen you in a while. How does IS Essentials deal with a project that is staged or in different phases? Is there other phases of the project required to register for a rating, or can all phases be combined for a rating, even though this could be cumbersome in terms of collating all the information? Ty, I might go to you first.
Yeah, sure. So the short answer again is yes to all of the above. And I think as the question illustrates, it gets complicated really quickly. So this is probably most or best answered by my slide that talked about the organizational approach or the program of works. And really what we're saying is that there are different pathways that we are very open to it, and having conversations to work out what works best for your project, because there are all these nuances. So the answer, I guess, is yeah, have a chat to us, please, but we can definitely work with the proponent and the project to find the answer that kind of has the best outcomes and the most reasonable.
Great, thanks, Ty. And the last question from Mary: I'm interested to learn about the fee structure for projects less than $5 million. Mary, I'd encourage you to reach out to Michael Coleman to have that conversation, and we are more than happy to walk through what that might look like with you. That's not a problem. If there are no more questions, I'd just like to take the time to say thank you to the panelists. Andrew, thank you so much for your ongoing support. It has been a long journey, and we greatly appreciate the support you've provided. To the team, this is a massive effort, and a huge thank you. But very importantly, a huge thank you to the Westpac and New Zealand Government Innovation Fund. A huge thank you to our pilot projects, to our technical working group, to our industry reference group, and to every single one of our members and stakeholders who've reached out with an idea or challenged a thought all the way through this process. These tools are made stronger and better by the collective and the views of the collective. So we really do appreciate everything everyone has done to support this, and we are so excited to see this rating tool reach the market, and we look forward to supporting everyone in driving greater social, cultural, environmental, and economic benefits across our infrastructure assets in Australia and New Zealand. A huge thank you, and we look forward to working with all of you over time.